Hello, and welcome to She Emerged podcast. Today, I will be introducing you to Bowen Systemic Theory, Intergenerational Family Therapy. And so, in this episode, I will be covering intergenerational family therapy and what that means in terms of Bowen family theory. So, allow me to introduce myself again. I am Sophia, your host. And in this community, we welcome you to like, share, and don't forget, subscribe. So, guys, we are so appreciative of you showing up in this space. And we just welcome you on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Let's delve into it. What is the goal of a Bowenian family therapy? Bowenian family therapy sees personal, emotional, and behavioral problems as being due to difficulties the individual experiences in differentiating the self from the family of origin. In some cases, fusion blurs the psychological boundaries between the individual and the other family members. So, in other family systems, individuals may be disengaged because the boundaries between family members are so rigid that few or no emotional transactions take place. So, this is very important for us to notice in a Bowenian family therapy context. As I highlight on individuality and togetherness, I also want to pinpoint that this is our capacity to maintain a balance between these two life forces. So imagine that individuality and togetherness is that capacity, but self differentiation is experienced throughout the lifespan. And how is this influenced? It's been influenced within the family systems as well as by past generations and extended family members. Understand that we are more than our individual selves. So, this idea of the emotional fusion that is passed down through generation, it creates psychological problems. So, that change in the individual emotional functioning, it also affects other family members' emotional functioning. This also helps individuals to learn more about themselves and relationships in order to assume responsibility for self. Not only that, but understanding rather than action is the cure. So, this is what, the whole concept of Bowen Family Systems is all about. So help me to share that in Maury Bowen's intergenerational core concepts, there is this notion of intrapsychic aspect of differentiation, which means that at one level, differentiation refers to the separation of feelings, how we're able to separate our feelings and our thinking. But the undifferentiated people have difficulty distinguishing thoughts and feelings, whereas the more highly differentiated people are capable of both strong emotion as well as the logic thought. But also, I want to share that we are never fully differentiated. So there's the scale from 0 to 100. And I want to say safely that we're in the middle, right? We can be in the middle more so. So when it comes to interpersonal aspect of differentiation, we are looking at differentiation, which refers to the person's ability to clearly distinguish itself, right? So it distinguish oneself from others. So you know where you begin, where you end, where the other person begins, ends, so to speak. So let's look at this in terms of the difficulty persons experience distinguishing their thoughts, not only their thoughts, but their feelings from those of others. So the differentiated people are better able to be simultaneously autonomous and relational. So, what are the level of differentiation? One's level of differentiation is believed to be significantly impacted by the general level of differentiation in one's family of origin and also one's role in the family. So, the role that you play in the family. For example, children who are more actively involved in family conflict are more likely to be less differentiated than those who remove themselves. This is what, Bowen posits. Furthermore, it is generally believed that people marry others with a similar level of differentiation. So the lower levels of differentiation are generally accompanied by high levels of anxiety. So this exists both personally and interpersonally. Let's look at the triangles and how this shows up in the space. So triangles are natural. They're a natural process that has multiple effects, according to Kara and Bowen. And triangles are influenced by the level of anxiety. So when anxiety is low, this postulates that there is little tension in the relationship. When the relationships become distant, anxiety increases. So then, hence, there is a third person, or not necessarily a third person or thing, is now introduced to stabilize the relationship. So triangles involve introducing a third person, essentially, such as a child, a parent, or a friend, into the dynamics of the troubled dyad. And guess what? A therapist can also be triangled into this space. So, another example is when a couple argues, it is common for one or both parties to turn to a friend or family member to discuss the situation at hand. So, this triangulation becomes problematic. Why? Because when it is chronic, the original dyad never resumed. So, that communication is unresolved, right? So let's look at the nuclear family process. What Bowen states here is that the nuclear family emotional process defines the flow of emotional processes or patterns. So, patterns, we have to look at the patterns. So there are patterns that shows up in the family system, in the emotional units. And so this is how we see the functioning of the nuclear family. What about sibling position? This concept of functioning as it relates to the sibling position, in this emotional space, it generates certain functions. So, for example, firstborn children tend to be characterized by power, authority, and self confidence. On the other hand, later born children tend to identify with the oppressed and tend to be rebellious, so to speak. So perhaps someone who you're able to identify as the individuals who are in these sibling positions. Next, we'll look at emotional cutoff. Here, Bowen states that people cut off normally from families of origin to reduce the discomfort generated by being in emotional contact with them. And so we will see the emotional cutoff happening. Um, for example, people may move away because there's too much fusion, too much tension in the family. So they move away. Case in point, what Bowen suggests is that just because someone moves away doesn't mean the problem is resolved. It creates a distance, he's saying. It reduces the anxiety. So even as I hold spaces for my clients who are, presenting concerns in terms of what happens in the family emotional system, here are some techniques in that therapeutic space. So, as a therapist, we generally teach clients basic family system concepts to promote self awareness, and not only that, but to conceptualize the presenting problem in a systemic perspective. It also strengthened their intellectual functioning in the therapeutic space while decreasing their emotional reactivity. Supporting our clients' efforts helps to maintain an appropriate balance. So hopefully you will walk away today after, this episode with a takeaway, of course. So what is the goal of Bowenian family therapy? From this lens, as therapists or as a therapist, I help my clients to develop a healthy differentiation of self from one's family of origin by separating intellectual from emotional functions. So, as a result, in a stressful situation, one is able to respond more reasonably, autonomously, rather than to react emotionally, right? So that's one of, the prism through which I work from a Bowenian lens, so to speak. One of the things that I've also found to be helpful in that therapeutic space is that I'm able to utilize I statements in my therapeutic room. And this helps clients a lot to think about um, how they're able to process different emotions. So instead of you always, you never, why don't you, for example, you know, they are expressing from an I position. It's non blaming, right? So focusing on self. How do I work through this presenting concern in which they, normally find more useful than utilizing the you statements? And so with this, they're able to process what they need, less focus on other, more focus on self. So this has been, something that my clients have found to be useful outside of the therapeutic space. And even so, when working with couples, they're able to identify certain patterns that shows up, in their conversations, and how they're able to utilize from an I position more so, and how this also helps them initially to reduce some of the, you know, conversations that they would normally have and create a better, space, or I would say a healthier space for them to be able to have those conversations. So today, guys, I just wanted to pause real quick and to share on what is intergenerational family therapy from a systemic level. In another video, I will be able to share more on genograms and how you're able to incorporate a genogram if you're a therapist and you're able to incorporate a genogram into your therapeutic space when you're working with a client. And also for clients, they're able to better understand their family systems when they're able to look at a genogram and to be able to see patterns within their family system. So, thank you guys so much for, supporting this channel. And even so, when you leave a comment, that helps me to know what videos I should be, sharing more of. As you are able to request certain videos, then this will be more beneficial for you. So share, like, subscribe, and that's it for now, guys. Take care.